Okay, hi guys. So today I'm going to be talking about something which is quite a big issue, not just for clients but also for myself. I think it's something that tends to affect everybody. And that's obviously the S word, which is stress, and kind of hopefully shed some light as to how I understand the best ways to help you manage it and approach it. Obviously, when we talk about stress, I don't want to get bogged down too much in technical details, because this is supposed to be like a kind of a practical tips video for you. There's two main types we talk about. One is acute and one is chronic stress. So acute stress is very short-term type stress. So the way I understand it, so that would be, for example, you're driving your car and you have a car accident. That's pretty acute stress. For the most part, there's not much we can really do about that in terms of long-term management, because there's outside factors that contribute to that. Going along with that is what we call chronic stress. So chronic stress is stuff that you get exposed to over a period of time, and this is the one really that's more concerning, because it's going to affect your fat loss results, your sense of well-being, general quality of life. And obviously, a chronically stressed body is obviously more tired, more susceptible to injuries and illness and things like that. So I think if I can help give you some practical tips how to best manage that, I think it will definitely pay dividends long term as well. Okay, so when people ask me about stress, I'll usually reply with some sort of cryptic message along the lines of, stress is easy, it's all about bucket management. Or I'll say stuff like, someone says I'm stressed, I'll just go, well, how was your bucket? And people look at me, quite rightly so, like I'm mental. I'm not quite sure I first heard this analogy. Possibly it was from Paul Chek. So for those who don't know, Paul Chek was quite a big lifestyle guru, probably 5-6 years ago. Really, really big. Obviously, he still is big now, but he was like the go-to guy for stress, basic digestive issues, well-being, that sort of stuff. Seems to have fallen out of favour recently, but for whatever reason, I think this is where I got it from. I'm not too sure. Maybe I got it from him and he got it from someone else. Who knows? But basically, the way I look at stress is basically it's like a bucket. As crazy as that sounds. So if we have a bucket here. This crude interpretation of a receptacle which is shaped somewhat like a bucket. The way I look at it is at any given point in time, you've got a certain stress level, which I like to think of as a bit like water in a bucket. Yeah? So if I show that in, so say that's your current stress level there. So what are the things that feed into your current stress level? So if you go back to the bucket analogy, if you think of everything that's kind of chronically stressful in your life is basically like a tap that feeds that bucket. So what do I mean by that? Things that can be, for example, like constant work stress. If you've got a very stressful job where you work long shifts or long hours, obviously that's going to be a stress on your body, day in, day out. You can have things like family stress. Obviously, if you've got kids running around, especially teenagers, I've been told, causing you grief. That's obviously going to be a long-term stress in your body, day in, day out. Other things as well could be, say you've got like an injury. So like from my experience, like a lower back injury. I know that when my back was horrendous, obviously that was a lot of stress in my life because doing basic things day to day, suddenly became massive mountains to overcome. So obviously that's going to put stress on your body. Also as well, going along with that, you've got to think of, training is also a stress. Obviously, hopefully it's a positive stress on your body, rather than necessarily just a negative. But one of the things I've kind of learned as a coach going along over time is that the training that I choose for clients has to be appropriate to their recovery ability. So I know if I overtax them, a few different things can happen. One, obviously they can kind of run into the ground and have no energy, and if that goes on for a long period of time, that can have serious repercussions in terms of metabolism and other issues like that. Also, generally, if they tend to get weaker, or if they go from muscle mass, they start to lose weight very quickly. I know they're underrecovered. So for me, training is a stress on the body, a long-term stress, and that's why you need to be careful with the training that if your recoverability is impaired for any reason, you need to tailor the amount of training and the type of training we do appropriately so that you can still recover from it and obviously still get an outcome. Obviously it means you might not get results quite as quickly as you wanted, but it's better than not getting any results and kind of damaging your health as you go. So, think of all these things that feed your current stress level. So obviously you've got all these things in day-to-day life that are feeding them, so like I said, maybe work stress, relationship stress, kid stress. Also things as well like to do with your food, like food intolerances as well. If you're eating foods that you're intolerant, that's obviously going to put stress on your body, which is obviously no good. So really, when we talk about kind of stress management, one of the first things we need to do really is we need to reduce the amount of stress going in, or do our best to control them. So maybe we can look at, definitely food intolerances, if you have got them, that's something that can be looked at pretty easily, just a simple test, and then just basically avoid the foods that you don't get on with. I think it's pretty simple. Things like work stress tends to be a little bit more complicated. I think people that are self-employed generally tend to have it worse from the clients that I've spoken to anyway, but ironically they're probably in the best position to do something about it. It's just a question of being sensible about, learning to cut back, learning to say, when to say no, and making sure you've got some time to yourself in your week or during your day, so you've got time to recharge. Obviously, people who've got very demanding employee jobs, is maybe necessarily a little bit harder if you are under the pump, because maybe you're covering for other people at work, or it's because you've got demanding boss and stuff like that. I think realistically, if you can do your best to maybe reduce hours, or even necessarily scheduling regular holidays, stuff like that, kind of break the year up, that can definitely help. Obviously, family stress as well. Generally, I find women are worse with this than men. Maybe I guess it's because mum tends to put herself last and kind of runs around and does everybody else's bidding for them, and generally wipes their asses and does all the chores and ferrying around for them. Not to say that dads obviously don't get involved, but in my experience, the female clients that do have families do tend to struggle more with this, and I think that's because they don't generally tend to schedule much time for themselves, because they're obviously looking after the rest of the family. One thing you can do there is obviously, if it is a serious issue, is maybe look at ways that maybe the family can share some of the workload a bit better. So even things like chores and stuff, they can help. Even basic things like laundry, shopping, that sort of stuff definitely helps. So I think if you can do that, and then maybe that little bit of time that you free up putting into stuff that you enjoy doing to de-stress would definitely help. Even stuff like meditation or massage, or whatever, go for a nice long walk, some fresh air, or go for a swim, whatever you like to do to relax. Do that, definitely helps. So then obviously, manage to train stress. You've got to work up, work stress, family stress, food intolerances are covered. Also, the other things as well, like to go with kind of food as well, is kind of hydration levels as well, especially if you live in Australia, like I am. You're obviously sweating out a lot more, so if you're constantly dehydrated, that itself will stress the body out as well. So all we really want to do in terms of the stress coming in is we just want to kind of, reduce as much as possible the stress coming in, okay? That's we can manage it better, because obviously what we don't want is if if stress becomes overwhelming and basically you fill your bucket up and it starts to overflow, we're going to be in trouble. So if we can just manage stress, things that are causing the stress, manage those better, that's going to put less stress in there in the first place. Now the other thing we need to do, the other way we need to look at and approach, is also not just minimising the stress going in, but also how your body deals with stress and how it can recover from stress. We need to look at activities and things that we need to do that's going to ensure that your body can deal with as much stress as possible. So when I go back to my bucket, I'm talking about kind of things that you need to do for your body to help it deal with stress better. Really, it's like having that bucket, and creating a hole in the bottom of that bucket so that the water or the stress can flow out, and try to make that hole as big as possible so that we know that you've got a better capacity to deal with stress long term. So if we look at a bucket like this, that's what we want. So what are the things that we can do to help your body deal with stress? So big point I think a lot of people is a consistently good diet. Obviously if you've got food intolerances and the wrong sort of foods at the top end, that puts stress on your body, but on the flip side, that's a good, well-controlled, consistent diet actually helps your body deal with stress better, because it's going to give your body all the nutrients it needs to run more efficiently and obviously deal with stress a lot better. And, a big thing as well, again, going back to female clients, is if they're constantly undereat or they're missing meals, obviously, you're hampering your body's ability to be able to handle stress. So you're going to find your capacity for stress is going to get less and less and less. So also you need to be careful with your diet, you're consistent in eating enough, then your body's got the energy to deal with the challenges of the day as they come. Another big thing to look at as well, definitely, is sleep. Sleep, really important. Most of my clients, they get all the best results. Two things in common: one, they've got a really consistent diet, and two, they all sleep pretty well. I know if people sleep easily and consistently well, that the results are a lot easier to come by, because obviously they can recover better from hard training. I can train them harder, but also the fat loss in terms of stress hormones being better controlled is a lot easier. Also, I don't want to get too much into detail of that today, but if you're well rested, fat loss is definitely a lot easier, and on top of that, obviously you can train harder as well. So sleep is a big one. So if you haven't checked out my video on sleep, I'll put a link up there somewhere. So if you haven't checked it out, go and check that out now. I'll give you some basic tips to help improve your sleep. Sleep helps a lot. Also things like stress management activities. So again, I mentioned before, things like meditation. Definitely things like massage as well help loads massively, because if you're all tight from training and general life, I think just being able to massage yourself so your posture's relaxed, your breathing tends to change, and that in itself is going to help relax your body and help it deal with stress. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can also be activities that you just enjoy doing, which could be anything. For me, I enjoy bodyboarding and I enjoy riding a motorbike or working on a motorbike. But for you, that could be even just going for a walk, or time with family, friends, maybe time with pets if you like animals as well. Going for a swim, anything you can kind of schedule for yourself. At least once a week that you enjoy doing, you can do for sort of 30 minutes to an hour. Or more if possible, which just gives your body, your brain a chance to kind of take some downtime and just let you mentally recover as well. And you find when you do that, you find it's a bit like, there's a very famous guy, I think he's dead now, a guy called Stephen Covey, who wrote a book called 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. One of the things that he talks about is, one of the habits is called sharpening your saw. So what he means by that is any time that you take time out for yourself, to kind of refresh yourself and get your head clear again, when you come back, you're actually going to find you'll be more effective at your job, at your life, looking after your family and everything else. So I definitely think activities that you enjoy doing as downtime, 100%, I think they help all the way around. Again, especially if you're self-employed as well, because I know as a self-employed person, it can be very hard to switch off. Especially when you're starting up a business again from scratch. Obviously you constantly kind of think of things that you could be doing and all the rest of it, but I think if you've got something to take your mind off that for a while, just give it a bit of downtime, I know I definitely come back a bit more refreshed and I'm a bit more effective, and that's the key, is to spend your time effectively, especially with business and everything else. So going back to the bucket, obviously the key is really, we want to try and minimise the amount of stress or water coming at the top from the different things, the stresses in your life with the taps. So we want to try and turn those taps down and manage them better. And then we want to try and increase your body's ability to handle stress by increasing that hole in the bottom so you can get rid of the stress. So obviously, when you think about stress, you think about buckets. There we go. I know it sounds crazy, but really I think probably all the years I've done this is probably the simplest, easiest analogy I've come across for understanding stress and how to kind of get around it, as crazy as it sounds. So there you go. So if people ask you about what you do to help manage your stress, you just say, well, I look after my bucket, basically. So there you go. Stress and buckets, easy as that. Obviously, let me know if this makes sense. I could be completely bonkers in my own little world in the way I understand this. So obviously, questions and comments, obviously, let me know. If you think like you need more clarification, obviously let me know. I'll do another video on it. Hopefully that's giving you some practical tips as to understanding how we kind of begin to approach stress management. What I'll also do at some point, I'll do a video kind of explaining in more detail why stress tends to affect your results, especially for fat loss and if you're trying to gain muscle as well, and how it hampers your recovery and why that's an issue. But that's a video for another day. Okay, cheers guys.